What if the world's largest military alliance, claiming to protect global peace, was actually shrouded in controversy and contradictions? Today, we're diving into the murky waters of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Known for its immense power and influence, NATO's actions often paint a different picture than its stated mission. Stay with us as we uncover NATO's double standards, where reality often contradicts its proclaimed goals. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is the largest military alliance in the world, led predominantly by the USA. Founded in 1949 in Washington by President Harry Truman, who also established the CIA and dropped atomic bombs on Japan, NATO was initially created to contain West Germany's power and keep the Soviet Union in check. The first NATO Secretary General, Hastings Lionel Ismay, famously said, "NATO's purpose was to keep the Soviet Union out, the Americans in, and the Germans down." Despite always having a European Secretary General for Public Relations, real power lies with the American president and generals. Richard Nixon openly confirmed this dominance, stating that the American military leads NATO. Also, if a country wants to leave NATO, it must formally withdraw in the USA, as per Article 13 of the NATO Treaty. This brings us to one of the most blatant contradictions. NATO is supposed to be a defensive alliance, yet its actions often tell a different story. When the USA leads military interventions, it's often painted as a necessary move for global peace and security. But when other countries engage in similar actions, they are quickly labeled as aggressors and threats to global stability. NATO's financial power is immense, with a budget of about $1.3 trillion in 2023 alone. But this power comes with numerous scandals. One of the most shocking is Operation Gladio in the 1990s. Through NATO's network, the CIA and MI6, secret armies were set up to prevent political shifts in various countries. These covert operations, confirmed by Italy's Prime Minister Giulio Andreotti and US General John Galvin, are troubling because in a democracy, secret armies undermine transparency and trust. Operation Gladio is a prime example of NATO's hypocrisy. While preaching democracy and transparency, NATO was secretly setting up paramilitary groups to influence political outcomes. Imagine the uproar if a country outside NATO did the same. It would be condemned internationally, yet NATO's actions were quietly brushed under the rug. The issue of NATO's secret armies, such as those revealed in Operation Gladio, cannot be overlooked. These covert operations aim to influence political outcomes in European countries, undermining democratic processes. If similar secret operations were conducted by non-NATO countries, they would be condemned as acts of subversion and aggression. Yet, NATO's clandestine activities are often downplayed or ignored in mainstream discourse. One of NATO's biggest controversies was the 1999 bombing of Serbia. Despite its claim of being a defensive alliance, NATO attacked Serbia without provocation, breaking its promise to refrain from the use of force unless under attack. This violation of international law led to the death of 2,500 people, including 1,500 civilians. NATO bombers conducted over 6,000 airstrikes, targeting even chemical plants and using uranium munitions. Germany, France, and the UK participated in this offensive, marking a significant breach of NATO's original defensive stance. The former German Chancellor, Gerhard Schröder, admitted, "I have violated international law," acknowledging that bombing a sovereign state without a UN Security Council resolution was unlawful. This starkly contrasts NATO's narrative of upholding international law and order. Following the 9/11 attacks, NATO invoked Article 5 for the first time, treating the attack on the USA as an attack on all member nations. The US presented clear and compelling evidence against Osama bin Laden, but these proofs were never made public. This led to NATO's invasion of Afghanistan, despite bin Laden being a Saudi national. This conflict, lacking a UN mandate, resulted in countless civilian casualties and ended in 2021 with the Taliban regaining control after NATO forces withdrew. NATO's eastward expansion has also been a point of contention. Despite assurances to the Soviet Union that NATO wouldn't expand, The alliance grew from 16 members in 1988 to 31 members in 2023, creeping closer to Russia's borders. This expansion is viewed by many, including former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, as a violation of trust and a destabilizing factor in European security. The inclusion of Ukraine in NATO's potential membership list was a significant provocation that contributed to the current conflict with Russia. The ongoing war in Ukraine is another example of NATO's complex role in global conflicts. Many argue that NATO's expansion and support for a pro-Western government in Ukraine after the 2014 coup set the stage for Russia's invasion in 2022. Russia claims it acted to protect Russian-speaking populations and to prevent Ukraine from joining NATO, insisting on Ukraine's neutrality as a condition for peace. This situation highlights the delicate balance of power and the provocations that can lead to war. One of the most glaring contradictions is how NATO's military interventions are perceived compared to those of Russia. When NATO intervenes in conflicts like those in Serbia, Afghanistan, or Ukraine, it is often justified under the guise of humanitarian aid or defense. However, similar actions by Russia are labeled as aggressive and unjustified. This inconsistency fuels criticism and distrust towards NATO's true intentions and undermines its credibility. NATO's stance on military spending also highlights its contradictions. The alliance pressures member countries to increase their defense budgets, arguing it is necessary for collective security. However, this push for militarization often contradicts the very principles of peace and security that NATO claims to uphold. When non-NATO countries increase their military spending, they are accused of warmongering and posing threats to global peace. NATO's involvement in the Ukraine conflict further exemplifies these contradictions. In 2014, a coup in Ukraine led to a pro-Western government, which many experts believe was supported by the US to align Ukraine more closely with NATO. This move violated the UN principle of non-interference in sovereign nations. When Russia responded by annexing Crimea and supporting separatists in eastern Ukraine, it was widely condemned as illegal and aggressive. While Russia's actions do violate international norms, so did the Western interference in Ukraine's political process. Yet the narrative remains skewed in favor of NATO. Let's not forget the broader implications of NATO's actions. The alliance's insistence on expanding its influence often leads to increased tensions and instability. For instance, the expansion towards Russia's borders has been seen as a direct threat, prompting aggressive responses from Moscow. This has not only destabilized regions, but also heightened the risk of broader conflicts. Moreover, NATO's double standards extend to its members' adherence to international norms. While the alliance demands strict compliance with international law from non-member states, it often turns a blind eye to violations by its own members. This selective enforcement undermines the credibility of NATO's professed commitment to global peace and security. Another aspect to consider is the economic burden of maintaining such a vast military alliance. NATO's push for increased defense spending among its members often comes at the expense of social and economic programs within those countries. This raises questions about the true cost of security and whether the emphasis on military strength truly serves the best interests of the member nations' populations. In conclusion, NATO, as the world's largest military alliance, has a history filled with contradictions and controversial actions. While it presents itself as a defender of peace and democracy, its interventions often violate international laws and principles. The alliance's actions reveal a pattern of hypocrisy, where similar behaviors are judged differently based on who is involved. This inconsistency not only undermines NATO's credibility, but also contributes to global instability. What do you think about NATO's role in global conflicts? Do you see it as a force for good or a source of instability? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Thanks for watching and see you next time.